Hey, don't roll the window up. Don't roll the window up.
Okay.
Do not roll the window up.
Do not.
Open the door now! Open the door now! Dude, don't move! Don't move!
Okay, welcome back to Internal Affairs State Police Podcast. Look, we're going to do a breakdown of a hot incident that happened in the wonderful city of Chicago involving Chicago PD officers. Nicole, look, thanks for sticking around, first of all, because I really feel it's kind of important for us to, somehow, some way kind of educate the public about the process, if you will.
Sure.
You have a lot of criminal proceedings experience, and definitely I can kind of chime in on the administrative portion, and we can both do that. But we are talking about what happened just March 21st, I believe. It just came out on body-worn video. And by the way, it's body-worn video of one officer. We do know at scene there's 5 officers, plainclothes details. So my understanding is probably a specialized unit. And what we do know for sure that there was 96 rounds that were deployed, that were the officers actually engaged. And what we don't know, and none of the articles as I'm looking here is, at one of many articles is, I believe they say here that the news medias are declining to say how many officers actually engaged in this officer-involved shooting. So, the kind of breakdown that I like to do and ask you, Nicole, why don't you kind of walk us through what happens in an officer-involved shooting, aka an OIS? What are these officers kind of like? What do they have to look forward to?
Well, the first thing is people don't realize all that happens in the moments following a shooting. So, following a critical incident, it is treated as any other homicide. So you have homicide investigators roll out, you have DA investigators roll out, you can have internal affairs roll out depending on the agency, the size of the agency, and the officers under immediate scrutiny. They're made to stay at the station until everybody else is interviewed, and then they're interviewed. And so it's a very stressful process for the officer in those moments following a critical incident.
Right, and what I do know a little bit about the process, of course, we're still talking about a sergeant responding at scene. We got to get the PSS, the public safety statement. We started talking about separation, monitoring of the officers. Then now we really have to start determining, okay, who heard it, who saw and heard it, and it's just a long process. But let me ask you this in terms of from a criminal lens, if you will. I know when we spoke in our episode about how you can retain the lawyer of your choice. So let's just say, hypothetically, each one of the officers that are being accused, if it ends up with criminal charges, it can be a long process.
Yes, it can be a very long process because what happens is the officer can, depending on the agency, I know in this case, the Chicago police officers have been placed on administrative leave right now, and that's become more and more commonplace with agencies is as soon as an officer is involved in a shooting, they're placed on administrative leave. Some of that comes from the city or the county analyzing risk management, et cetera, and so they'll often bench the officers, which means they're not getting paid their normal pay that they make. They're sitting at home. And they're forced to stay inside all day between the hours that they'd normally work, which can be stressful for people. And then they're waiting to hear back if their shooting has been cleared. And the people who are clearing the shooting is the DA's office, most importantly. They're looking at it as a homicide investigation. And so the DA's office is looking at it to see, was this a criminal shooting or was this legally excusable? And so that's what can take a long time. And you have to think, in California, the statute of limitations on a manslaughter case is 3 years. And so that means the DA's office should be clearing these shootings in under 3 years. Some of them are taking a year, 2 years to clear. And if you're benched that whole time, you're wondering, not only are you going to keep your job because you're benched administratively, but are you going to get charged on criminally, which is a huge stress. And then after the shooting is cleared, then the officer is going to be looked at by internal affairs, and any sort of force review that every agency does it a little differently. You can speak to how LAPD does their force review, but then they're being scrutinized by their own agency to see, now was the shooting in policy? Okay, it was legal. Now is it in policy? And then they're being scrutinized again, and they're waiting to know, am I cleared administratively now? And so this can be a 2-year easy process for an officer in the state of California.
I beg to ask, is there any analysis or a full examination on the tactics that come along with the engagement of these officers involved in this shooting?
Yes, so that's the big thing when people are looking at it both criminally and administratively. Tactics are always looked at. So in the criminal case, it's commonplace for the DA's office to retain a use of force expert to look at the tactics of the shooting and break it down and see, is this legally justified? Was the officer in the wrong in any way? And then you're going to have an agency that's going to do a force review, and they're going to be reviewing and seeing, was this in policy? Certain agencies ask when they interview the officer for them to account for every single round that they fired. And so an analysis is done as to each round. Was it in policy? What were the tactics for each round that was fired? Which is it's hard when you're in the moment and you have a split-second decision to say, between 1 second and 2 seconds, what was your thought? Now between seconds 2 and 3, what was your thought? Yeah.
And I was also going to ask, is there, considering, hypothetically, of course, we don't, and just for the record, we really don't know.
We don't know barely anything about this.
We saw a body-worn video that depicted one officer's body-worn video, and look, we can agree. There's no winning here. Everybody loses. The community, the department, all stakeholders. Losing a life, it's a tragedy. We get all that. However, there is some accountability and there's some judgment that has to be made, both criminally and administratively, for that matter. Is there a lesser charge that would be considered in criminal proceedings? Because I know, just hypothetically, manslaughter is at issue.
We're even seeing, one of my colleagues is trying a case right now for an officer who's charged with murder in Los Angeles for an officer-involved shooting. So it could range from murder, that's under a second-degree murder theory of wanton disregard for human life. It could go under a manslaughter. It could go under an assault. It could go under PC 149. So, excessive force under color of authority, basically. There's a lot of different charges that can come besides manslaughter.
Right. So it's just not as easy as people think. The court of public opinion, hey, these officers just, sprayed a person who was in a traffic stop, and that's what it was. It was a traffic stop, Mr. Reed, Dexter Reed. And it's just not an easy way to just say, okay, let's round up the officers and charge them with manslaughter. I mean, there's a complex of issues that come along.
And especially, like we talked about in the podcast, of body worn is such a huge thing now. All that body worn video's got to be analyzed, and it's going to be. And the thing I caution people about when they watch body worn and they make, judgments about what somebody did, the body worn's capturing here at the chest level. It's not capturing what the officer actually perceived in the moment. It's sanitized. It's a video. It's not what they were hearing, smelling, seeing. It doesn't capture everything.
A subsequent question, and then now you're talking about body-worn video as it relates to an OIS. What's your thoughts of watching body-worn video before your compelled statement, or not watching body-worn video? In other words,
yes,
there's studies, and you can agree to this, in research about the corrupt mind. I know for science, there's big theories on perception. It's kind of like doesn't it sound a little contradicting when we talk about internal affairs? Like, hey, we want facts. We want IOs to give us facts. But when it comes to an OS, we want perception. What's your thoughts on that?
I like the officer to be able to watch their video before they give a statement, because that statement is going to be so scrutinized. It's unbelievable. And especially when now it's being administratively scrutinized for potentially a false and misleading statement. The officer was under a great deal of stress. Whatever anyone can think about a shooting, there's a great deal of stress involved. And so it's commonplace for them to not remember exactly where they were standing or exactly where someone else was standing or what exactly was said. And these compelled statements get so detailed and they want to know every detail and it better be correct, that I think that it's good for them to watch it to refresh their recollection before they give a statement, that they're going to live and die by the statement. And they better have gotten it right.
Frame by frame, second by second. Totally understand it. Anything else that we can, tell the audience what's to come with, such this is a newsworthy event, and it's going to carry on for quite some time.
I think people should keep an open mind. I know that's hard to do. Everybody watches a video and they go, oh, that video is hard to watch, or I would have done something different, etc. Something we talked about off camera was, a lot of people don't know how many rounds are in a police officer's firearm. It tends to be, like in the state of California, 17.
Right.
So 96 sounds like a lot, but when you think that each officer has 17 rounds and there's 5 potentially officers that fired, they may have each emptied their clip, basically. And it doesn't sound as excessive as when you just say, oh, it was 96. That sounds very salacious. But when you think about how many rounds are actually carried in a firearm, and that you had this chaotic scene with people shooting, it gives a little bit more context for the human element in it.
No, absolutely. And I do know from the administrative perspective, you're probably looking at an allegation of unauthorized use of a firearm, or unauthorized discharge of a firearm, and probably unauthorized tactics, if that's the case. Those are, when I see this incident, just from experience, those are the 2 allegations that kind of just pop up right away. Anything else that you can think of?
I think that a big question is going to be, where was the supervisor, too? Was the supervision? What was known beforehand? What were the tactics beforehand? Was the supervisor notified beforehand? Was the supervisor at scene? Was the supervisor involved? There's going to be a lot of questions that are asked about this.
That would be command and control.
Yes.
Absolutely. And did we have a plan? Did we not have a plan? And we can agree from experience that there is deviation at times. It happens, sometimes substantially. And the question is, can you justify those substantial deviations? So
I think their communication is also going to be analyzed, too. That's going to be a big part of the tactical analysis, was what was the communication between the officers when this went down, too.
Well, you know what? Thank you for sharing that. We just kind of wanted to break down a little bit of this really hot topic.
Newsworthy.
Very newsworthy. It's going to carry on. Certainly, it will be scrutinized, and I guess we can agree it'll be a blemish and a bit of a tarnish on the, all the men and women in blue who are out there doing hard work. And you know what? Let's hope for the best. That's all we can do. Thank you for all your input, and that will be it. And again, like I always say, be safe, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.